All right, and it looks like we are going to be starting Control, run by the one and only Demonic. Take it away.
All right, hey there, everybody. My name is DemonicRobots, and welcome to Control. This is a third-person shooter by Remedy Games. If you haven't heard of it or played it, it's very similar to SCP in terms of the lore. And I'll try to explain the story as best as I can, but it is a very complicated story, so I'm only going to be hitting very broad bullet points through it. So keep that in mind. But we're going to get started here. This is going to be starting from a new game, and time is going to start when we skip this opening cutscene. So I'll do a little bit of a countdown for tech to make sure they're on time. And after we'll get through this loading screen. All right, 3, 2, 1, go. So Control is a third-person shooter, like I said, by Remedy Games. If you don't know them, they are the people who made Alan Wake and Max Payne, as well as a few other titles. This was kind of their all-star game, as I like to put it, where they really just went absolutely crazy with a lot of their ideas. Essentially, the main plot about this game is we are playing as Jessie Faden, a girl who has been searching for her missing brother, and she has tracked him down to a building called the Oldest House, which hosts the Federal Bureau of Control. They are a organization that basically houses paranormal objects and entities and kind of control them and make sure that they are not being used for dangerous reasons. Unfortunately, she comes in at a bad time where the Oldest House is taken over by something called the Hiss, which is an evil entity that's kind of infecting the staff of the FBC, and it's going to be Jesse's job to basically save the day. If you have played this game, you will know that the story about this starts at the very beginning. Jessie is hired as the janitor's assistant, and she's going to work her way all the way up to the director of the Federal Bureau of Control, so it's the classic boomer tale. But yeah, she's going to pick up that service weapon right there, and as you can see, we teleported. This is going to be a very common feature. That item is called the service weapon. It is an object of power and is tied to this mysterious entity called the board. This is going to be our main weapon throughout the entire game. In fact, it's going to be the only one that we actually use. It is worth noting that this doesn't actually have a reload. It doesn't have any ammo. It just has a recharging bar that you can see on screen. This bar kind of works like the Dark Souls stamina bar, where when you deplete it completely, you have to wait for it to charge up quite a bit, and that's how it's going to work throughout the entire game. So typically I like to try and keep at least 1 or 2 bullets in there to have a faster charge if I need to. But as you can see, it's going to work as a pistol right now, and the main gimmick about this game with the service weapon is that it can morph into other different forms. So later on we'll be seeing another one, because this is the all bosses category. You're also going to see me after this fight right here. I'm going to be looking over into this corner. This game does have camera manipulation with the enemy spawns, so looking into this corner will put them into a favorable position for me. Sometimes the spawns are static, sometimes they aren't. It really just depends on the enemy and the room that you're in. Like, for example, these guys will always spawn here no matter what. So it makes it easy to find out where they are. This beginning area has very optimized combat because we don't have a lot of our special abilities. So because of that, we kind of just have to get through as quickly as possible with the little that we have. As we get through the game, we'll unlock more powers, and that will allow us to A, break more things, but also be a little bit more powerful in combat. Just kind of lining myself up right there. Do a little smiley face for you, chat. But yeah, this is a control point. This game has basically Dark Souls bonfires. You come here, you reheal, it sets it as your last checkpoint when you quit to menu, and all of that stuff. We're going to be running into a lot of these throughout the game, and it's also a way that we can fast travel because it allows us to fast travel between them. This is very important for a glitch later on, but for now we're just going to be using them to basically teleport around, restore our health, and also upgrade our abilities. But first we have some lore stuff to go through. We are running into a character named Emily Pope, who is the assistant for a researcher named Dr. Darling. She is going to be kind of Jessie's, I guess, liaison, the person that she's going to go to when she has questions about specifics regarding the Oldest House. So that is going to be the main thing about her. Is she's kind of the lore dump for this opening area after the very cool intro. But basically, she tells us, hey, you know, now that you're the director of the FBC, you're going to have to go find the hotline. And the hotline will allow us to communicate both with the board, which is the mysterious entity that we saw earlier when we got this gun, and it's also going to connect us with Director Trench, who is kind of communicating with us, even though he's dead, via the bullet that is in his brain. Again, this is a very weird game, and it's very Remedy, as I like to say. We're also going to come up to the very first change regarding this route between any percent and all bosses. So we are playing this, the category is named All Bosses Legacy Standard. The all bosses means that we're going to be facing 10 bosses in the game. Usually we only face one during any percent. So we face a lot more bosses, and that means we have to go through a lot more content throughout the game, and we have even more combat that we have to prepare for. The legacy part of the name means that we are playing on the earliest available patch. So this is a patch without DLC, meaning we're not going to be fighting the bosses in that. We're going to be playing on patch 0.96, and standard means that we are allowed to go out of bounds. And going out of bounds is a very common thing that we'll do.
Object of power.
So we're coming up to the very second object of power. This is a floppy disk with Soviet nuclear launch codes. And of course, because it has launch codes on it, it is going to give us the power to launch things with our mind. A common thing that you'll find is whenever we get a new power, we are going to use it to break the game almost immediately. And this is the first case of that. After we get out of this tutorial area, you'll see what I mean. But we're going to be coming up to the biggest change between any percent all bosses at this very starting area, where we're actually going to be fighting a boss named Tomasi. Normally in any percent, you are only required to fight 2 bosses, and we can skip this one. However, because this is all bosses, we're actually going to be fighting him, which is kind of a rarity, because normally if you watch a control speedrun, you don't even see him. Gonna do some more combat. Thing that we can do with our launch ability is we're actually able to do things called pull-throughs, where as we are pulling an object towards us, we can hit an enemy if they are in the way of that path, and it'll do damage. So something that is pretty common that you'll see me do is I will try to pull objects that are behind enemies so it can pull through and hit them, and basically save me a launch from having to hit them separately. See if we can get it first try. Awesome. So what I just did right there is I did a clip that was called No Mossy. Basically what I did right there is I took an object, I held it in my hand, and then I jumped into it. What this did is it basically made it so the object regained its collision, and when Jessie is stuck inside of an object, she will get pushed up out of it in order to make sure she doesn't get stuck. It's like kind of like a soft lock prevention. And when we are rubbing against like paper thin areas like that floor, it'll just push us up right through it. So that was the very first boss fight. Tomasi is kind of an intro boss. A lot of players had a lot of difficulty, mainly because on the bottom floor, a bunch of enemies will spawn and attack you while you're getting attacked by Tomasi. However, if you just go up to the second floor, those enemies will not follow you up, and it makes the fight a lot easier. But don't worry, he is definitely one of the hardest boss fights in the entire game, and the second time we face him is something that terrifies me every single time. But now we get a bunch of lore stuff right now. We're in the Ocean View Motel. These are kind of like little segues into the next areas or to unlock bridges in other parts of the map in the game. They essentially act like little mini puzzles and, you know, offer a little bit more of lore and mystery to the game. But we're gonna head over here. This is the hotline. This is another object of power. However, it doesn't actually give us any ability. So because of that, it's just basically a way for you to get more lore and story out of the games, because you have a menu that pops up and you can get collectibles, which will explain both what you're doing and what has been done in the oldest house before your arrival. So in the meantime, while we're running through here, we have time for a donation or two if there is any.
It looks like we don't have any donations yet, but I did want to say we are under $100 away from our 5K goal for the whole event. So we are insanely close, y'all. Please get your donations in if you can. We would all appreciate it. I mean, I would appreciate it, of course, but we would all appreciate it.
Definitely.
Also, Is this just adult 11? Is this what's happening here?
Less nosebleeds, but there's some similarities there.
Maybe she's like tuned, like refined her skills.
That is possible. You never know. So what I just did right there is I did a quit to menu. Whenever you quit to the menu of this game, it will put you back at the control point when you load back in, and it's the most recent one that you touched. So typically, this will save you time with RTA and RTA without loads. This one is an example where it will save time in game, but it usually won't save time RTA. But you're gonna be seeing me do this a lot.
Am I allowed to jump in real quick?
Oh yeah, of course.
We actually just reached our 5K goal.
Oh, awesome. Let's go.
Let's go. Thank you all so much. We got a $100 donation from non-binary code saying if only we could reach that 5K goal. Oh, well, probably an unrealistic goal. Anyway, here's $10. Hey, where'd that other zero come from? Thank you so much, non-binary code. I will let you get back to it. I had to announce that.
I can find Ati here.
No, awesome timing. So we are heading into directorial override. The entirety of the oldest house is currently on lockdown, and because of that, we need to unlock it. And we're the director, we're the only person that could do it. So we're going to be going through, and normally the game wants you to do a bunch of stuff for the janitor. He wants you to, save the place from exploding and killing everybody. But Jessie's a little bit lazy. She doesn't really want to do that. So we're just going to do things like push ourselves out of bounds with that barrel and skip getting that control point. And we're going to be doing a sequence that we call Lazy Assistant. Essentially, normally the game wants us to power up some... Ooh, I need that piece. Thank you. It wants us to power up some energy converters and... turn on a bunch of other stuff. We're not going to do that. We're going to come here for a couple of reasons. We're going to both get a new power, and we are also going to hit enough triggers in order to get to the end of the level and not have it soft lock, because this game likes to do that a lot. So we have to hit triggers in order to avoid that. But this power is the most important one. This is kind of the introduction to side quests in the game, because this game plays like a Metroidvania. It's not completely linear. So this is our first side quest, but the game designs it very much for you to actually, play it and do this part. In fact, I think that there's only been 2% of the people who have beaten the game that have not done this side quest. And I can't imagine it was a very fun experience for those 2 people, because this is our dash ability. This is going to be our main movement mechanic, and it's going to be very important both for out of bounds navigation and combat. My energy recharge here. You're going to see that I have a energy bar now that is going to be showing up. This is tied with my launch as well. So if I am out of energy, then I can't launch. And if I'm out of launch, or if I'm out of energy after launching, then I can't dash. So a main mechanic that I'm going to be very careful of is making sure that I have the proper amount of energy, both during combat and for out of bounds navigation. But as you can see, this is very important. Again, even though it is a side mission, it is basically required for the speed run. But now that we got that, we can continue on with the main part of the mission. We're going to walk over here to hit a trigger that is going to walk over here to hit a trigger. There we go. That is going to allow us to move on with the level. Normally we're supposed to be talking to Ati here, who's the janitor and one of my favorite characters, and he tells us to go do a bunch of stuff for him. But again, we're kind of lazy, so we're just going to flip out of bounds and avoid talking to him entirely. And then we're gonna come over here, and then here. And so doing that is going to hit the triggers for the level, which basically allows me to complete it now, because the game thinks that we are able to complete it if we're able to get into the room, and the end of the area is right here. It kind of loops back in on itself, so this is very close to the actual spawn of that. So because of that, we're able to just basically just fall in at the very start of it to the very end. And just like that, we have saved the day. We definitely did all of the stuff that Audie wanted us to do in order to avoid the entirety of the oldest house exploding. I promise, I swear. Yeah, I'm gonna come over here, and this is going to turn off the lockdown, and this is going to give us access to the rest of the oldest house. So we can go to a bunch of the other sectors, and this is where the game really starts to open up when you're playing it casually. But right now we're going to be heading over into OBC after we speak with Emily over here. This is going to be a common occurrence is after we finish a mission, we'll have to come over here and talk to Emily about something. Basically, we're getting a bunch of lore, and as you can see, we're just going to be advancing right through it without a care. You're also going to see me upgrade my launch to the maximum that I can. Because this game has leveled enemies, it wants you to get mods, it wants you to upgrade your weapons, it wants you to put mods on those weapons. That is all very slow. So a way that we basically avoid falling too far behind in terms of power level during the combat as a game gets later and later on is by increasing our launch at the max level. This kind of evens us out and makes our launch probably the most useful ability during combat. Along with that, launch is kind of required when you're fighting against shielded enemies. You can melee them to break their shields, but they're kind of resistant to your gun, so you don't really want to use it against them. But we're going to get them over here. So this is the research sector. We're going to be heading over to talk to Marshall. She is the head of security. She's basically a super awesome badass who is former CIA and definitely knows more than anybody else in the oldest house. She is very scary and very awesome. But we're going to be doing some skips to get over to her. This is actually kind of 2 skips in one. I call it the research skip, but it used to be called 2 fight skip because it skipped 2 of the fights. And now it's also called screaming skip because we skip a screaming ball of evil matter that we have. I have no idea what it is, honestly. It just screams, it's evil, it's all that jazz. Also going to tap myself against there. I actually need to hit a trigger that is right there, and if you're not careful you can actually get stuck in the wall, which isn't fun, but we are through and we should be okay here in a second. Again, when you don't have some of your later abilities, it's much harder to navigate the out of bounds here, so you have to be a lot more careful because you don't really have a way to save yourself if you mess up. We have another fight coming up right here. You're gonna notice a few new enemies. You saw right there was a huge red glowing ball. That enemy doesn't actually do any damage to us, but it will heal enemies very quickly if you don't get rid of it, and it likes to jump around. We also have those guys that are sitting around. They are basically telekinesis soldiers that were being kind of experimented on, kind of volunteering. Oh, he's still alive. Hi there. I missed. There we go. So we want to get rid of them as quickly as we can. If you launch an object at them, they will actually dodge it, or try to dodge the first one, and then you can throw a second one at them. So they can be a little bit annoying to deal with. So we want to hit them basically before that happens. They kill these guys. I am also trying to collect resources in this area. So you'll notice that I'm picking up what are called materials. These are basically parts of the game that will allow you to both get new weapon forms and also some other stuff. We are using it because we want the material to create a weapon later on called Pierce. The only time that we get these materials that are required to actually build the weapon is in the research sector, and that is in these very in these fights. Basically, we need a certain amount. We need 8 astral blips and 12 intrusive patterns. And if we don't get them here, we basically just don't get the gun, and that is not very good during all bosses. Normally, during any percent, we will basically just only run grip, because it's actually a really good form, even though it's the starting one. So we basically use that for the entirety of the mission. However, when we're doing all bosses, we have a lot more combat, and we have a lot more single target enemies, which the Pierce is really good at fighting against. So because of that, we want to get Pierce in our playthrough. Thankfully, it's pretty easy if you're careful enough to actually get it. Typically, you get at least close enough to it, and you get some of the material you need from completing the mission. But you do have to be kind of careful, and if you do get bad drops, then unfortunately, there's not a whole lot you can do without losing a significant amount of time. Here we go. We have another fight right here. A lot of this combat is very optimized. Thankfully, a lot of these spawns are similar, and the camera nips are also the same as well. However, this area can be a little bit frustrating. There's a lot of enemies going on, and we want to keep track of all of them in order to avoid them going off, just somewhere completely random. Like, we want to keep our camera facing forward so these guys spawn here, and we want to kind of keep them in front of us, basically, because otherwise they'll spawn really far behind us, which is super bad. Or they'll do what they're doing right now, where they'll just go all the way up there. These are also the... I can't remember what they're actually called in-game, I'll admit. But basically, they will kind of slowly float up to you and explode. Here is what is called a, it's not a boss, I kind of consider it like a sub-boss. It is basically a named enemy that is a little bit more beefed up than the common variants of it. So the way that we consider something to be a boss in this game is if it has a its own health bar at the very bottom of the screen. So you saw with Tomasi, it was in the bottom center of the screen. That means that it is a boss and counted as one. Also, oh, awesome, we got a dodge, and we are at 8 and 9, so we are missing some materials, so I'm going to do a little bit of looking around. We need 12 intrusive patterns, we only have 9. We have like 1 or 2 more areas to actually get those that we need. I do want to just take a quick little glance around. There's 10. Just kind of want to make sure I didn't miss any, even though I'm losing a little bit of time by doing so, but it's much easier to do this with the Pierce. So sadly, we didn't get any right there. We can open these things called mod boxes. Again, normally when we're doing any percent, we just never touch these. It's not worth the time to actually get them. Not what I needed, that's fine. But, you know, we really want to make sure we get this. So hopefully we get, I think we need 2 more. If not, this is going to be a little bit harder than usual, but we should still be okay. Okay, all right, that's 1. I think we just need 1 more, so fingers crossed.
Any idea how to make it work?
This is called the HRA machine. This is basically a piece of a lab that will basically make those things that you see on Marshall's body, which basically prevents them from turning into the hiss. So it's very important, and we need to get it working again. So we got to go do a puzzle. In the meantime, we have a few moments for a donation or 2.
I'll see what I can do.
Or not. That's fine. We're just gonna finish up this puzzle right here. More lore stuff happens, and we're gonna head over onto our second boss. Our second boss is the golden copy. So normally we don't actually fight. It's kind of hard to explain, but basically this is kind of a weird boss. Whenever you get a new power, it gives you a little tutorial area, as you guys have seen, where you go into the white void with all the like weird geometry and everything like that. Those are kind of just tutorial areas. They're basically very easy, teaching you how to use the power. This power that we get is something called Seize. It lets us take over enemies with our mind and use them to fight for us rather than against us. So, because of a little fact though, like I said earlier, where a boss is considered a enemy with its own health bar at the very bottom of the screen, we actually get a boss here that is kind of designed to teach you how to... Ooh, we didn't get anything from those guys. That sucks. It's basically a power that teaches us how to do combat with Seize. So we're going to come up to this enemy over here. As you can see, it is a boss. You get the little health bar right there, the golden copy. However, we can't do any damage to it. We have to seize these guys right here, and they will fight it for us. One slight issue is that...
I'm so sorry for popping in last minute. I just wanted to apologize for being silent there. I was so
no problem.
Your game.
Yeah, no worries. So this is basically completely random. These guys suck at fighting this dude. They are absolutely terrible at it, but they're doing kind of a decent job right now, so they're giving us good luck for the marathon. But as you can see, these guys like to miss, they like to do all this weird stuff, they like to shoot from behind. They were actually very generous for us. So that was very kind of them. Normally I would quit out and just head back out, but I want to do one more fight. I really want to get this one last intrusive pattern that I need. I'm hoping that one of these guys will drop it. Oh, is that it? Please? Nope, that's a mod that I don't need. Okay, also another mod I don't need. Come on, folks. I just need one more intrusive pattern. It's not looking like they're getting it for me. 11, 11. That is very frustrating. Please, please. Yes, all right, he gave it to us. Thank goodness.
Oof.
This was
Oh
gonna
my
be,
gosh.
yeah, this was gonna be much harder to do if he did not do that. So, I will take that. A little bit, you know, longer than I wanted it to, but thankfully we got it. So now we are heading over into Threshold. Threshold is the hardest mission in the entire game because it is where we get another ability. This ability is called Shield, and this allows us to do a very important glitch. But first, we have to do a little bit of out-of-bounds shenanigans to get to where we need to get. So again, this is a optional side mission to get another power. However, the time it saves is significantly more than the time it requires to actually get it. So first things first is we're going to come out of bounds right here.
Once I find him.
I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Gonna land into this area. This is gonna skip having to do a area where we have to basically like a little field training course, and that's gonna allow us to get to the very end right here.
Harder to break that sheet. Guessing this isn't.
So this is a safe, and
It's protecting.
basically we touch the safe, we can make shields now. This ability isn't that really useful for combat. We don't really use it too much. In fact, I just never use it at all during combat when I'm speedrunning. However, it is really good for using it to get out of bounds. Now you're probably thinking, how is a shield like allowing you to get out of bounds? Well, it's kind of tied to how the game likes to move you when you are fast traveling between areas. So we're gonna come over here, do a couple of skips, thankfully, because we have our dodge, so we don't actually have to go through and do the tutorial mission where you're supposed to have your shield up and dodge all these attacks that are coming at you. That's really slow. We're gonna come over here. There we go. And awesome. So now that we have shield, we can do something called Shieldy McSorry, which is one of the best glitches I've ever done. So we're gonna load back into this, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna be teleporting between two different areas while we pull up our shield over the menu so they overlap. And when we get after this loading screen to the area, we can just kind of fly.
Save everyone.
So there's some caveats to that, but essentially it allows us to go out of bounds and fly and gain height. It basically enables no clip. The thing is, it is a very wonky no clip. So it's A, very dangerous, it's very easy to accidentally die, and B, it's very hard to control. I don't have no board on right now. However, if I did, you guys would see that to go forward, I am holding A and S while mashing the space bar, which is the jump key, to go forward. It is dependent on what keys you're holding, if you are spamming jump inputs or not, how fast you're spamming them, where your camera is angled, what the tides are the, you know, the time of the year. It's like sometimes just completely random. So thankfully there is some consistent ways to actually do this trick, but it is very, very difficult to get down consistently. So we're going to be doing another one right here. This is going to be like the main aspect about the run, is going to be doing these shieldies in order to access different areas and to break some sequences. We saw a tiny little one right there that you guys saw. This one is much more apparent as to how this trick works. As you can see, we're just literally flying all the way over to where we need to go. This game is very much based off of triggers for the game, because again, this is kind of Metroidvania, so it's reliant on those in order to make sure you are getting to like the appropriate areas in the right spots. And because of that, we have to hit a lot of triggers before we can go to the end level. So we can't just go to the very end of the level, do the thing, and then be done. We have to hit the triggers along the way. So thankfully, you don't need to hit these triggers in order. So we do this mission completely out of order, because normally we're expected to do this part last. However, we are doing it first. So we're going to head over here. Right now, I'm going to be hitting all of these different triggers that are going on. So in the meantime, I think we got time for maybe 1 or 2 donations.
Sounds good. We got a $49.60 donation from Radicoon, and they said, thank you for funding Alan Wake 2. That's it for donations, but I did want to mention that all revenue from Twitch subscriptions and cheered bits received during these runs do go towards the charity as well. So if you donate bits, if you subscribe, if you have any primers in chat, you know, you can use those.
Arish wasn't kidding about that monster.
Awesome. So this is a introduction to a new enemy. I hate this guy. What it is it's a streaming bat that will one-shot you almost. That likes to turn invisible. So I'm going to do a couple of pull-throughs and some combat to actually kill it before it does that. But if you don't kill it in time, it likes to fly off and then turn invisible and then jump scare you. That isn't annoying there. It is very annoying in a boss fight later on. So keep that in mind, but those enemies are very scary. The way that health works in this game is you can't be one-shot by something. The only way you can die from max health, like... Oh, whoops. The only way that you can die from, like, maximum HP immediately is by fall damage. Otherwise, if you are hit by an enemy that is going to do 150% of your health, it'll only do 99% and then put you in a one-shot state. This gives us a lot of safety later on because we don't have to worry about dying as much. Because when we get hit by enemies, we have a little bit of recovery. And the only way that you can gain health back is by eating these little blue Tic Tacs that you'll see on the ground that are dropped by enemies. So a very common strategy is when you're low in health is to run up to an enemy, shooting at it and just completely mag dumping it, and then picking up all the little blue pieces that fall out of it to heal. What those guys will do is they will scream at you, drop you down to 1 HP, and you're usually in an area where there are other enemies that will finish you off almost immediately. So that is something to take note of, is to be careful during combat. Make sure your health is not getting too low. But unless there is a red border around your screen, you are basically safe from being killed in one shot. But here we go. We have another little section. This is basically us trying to fix that machine that we were working on earlier. We need to get a piece of black rock from the black rock quarry. The way I say what this is it basically is a special rock that has anti-spooky properties. It nullifies a lot of the effects of a bunch of paranormal objects and entities in order to kind of either make them not as powerful, or it will just render them entirely useless. It's also how people other than Jesse are able to not turn into hiss monsters. So now that we got a piece of black rock, we can return back to Marshall. She can fix the lab, they can make more HRAs and get more people out of the safe zones, which is very important for, you know, rebuilding the oldest house and the FBC. However, we've kind of forgotten about one thing, and that is the main motivation for Jessie's character here, which is her brother. She is trying to find her brother, and she knows that the Federal Bureau of Control took him 17 years ago. So now that we have done all of that, we can finally go find our brother, who is currently in something called the Panopticon. And the Panopticon is literally the closest to like SCP you can get, where it's just a giant area that houses a bunch of super spooky objects, from a surfboard that can hypnotize you. If you're an Alan Wake fan, you can find a piece of his manuscript here, along with a coffee thermos from the Oh Dear Diner that always keeps your beverages warm, which is really, really handy. And a bunch of other stuff, including our brother Dylan, who, like Jesse, has a couple of powers. However, because he's been in captivity for so long, he's a little bit more... He's not having a great time. Not as much as Jesse. Like, see, we're having fun here, enjoying ourselves, you know, throwing stuff around. It's really cool. He's had a much different experience with the FBC. But first, we have to actually get to him, and we actually have to prevent a object from basically destroying the place. And like usual, Jesse is the only one who can stop them. So we're gonna grab this object. We're gonna be doing something here called a wrong warp, or a Neum. Whenever you mantle on something that it doesn't know where to put you, it'll essentially put you to the 000 coordinates of the loaded cell, and that allows us to teleport like we just did right there. So I mantled on a spot that it just didn't know where to put me, and that put me out of bounds, and I can actually just fall over into here. This is another one of the Ocean View motels. These are already loaded into the map. They're just like, you know, super far out, but because we have out of bounds properties, we can literally just fly over to them, land at the very end of them, and skip the puzzle entirely. It's very, very nice. Yeah, and they're called nooms because it just nooms you across the map. It's great. If you're familiar with Control, a lot of these skip names are made by a person named Brian Otto. They are very creative and very clever, and have made some amazing skip names. So I just want to give them a shout out, because otherwise, you know, this game wouldn't be as half as fun with the glitches that we have. But now that we have 2 control points in the same sector, we now get a return of Shieldy. So this is the parameters for us being able to use Shieldy, is we need 2 control points in one sector, and we need to be able to teleport between them. If I teleport, like, let's say, if I try to teleport from the maintenance sector to the research sector with Shieldy, it will not work. So that is a important thing to note. Also say hi to Philip over there. Philip is just chilling. We're actually going to go talk to Philip later on, but for now we're going to be basically, you know, saving the day like usual. And of course, this means a few more nooms. We're heading up to Salvador. This is the only boss that you have to fight in any percent, and that's kind of a shame, because this boss is not difficult. It used to be very difficult, and then Shieldy came along and completely changed the route. So what we're going to be doing here is, normally we have to cross that bridge right there and fight some enemies and get through, and then come over here. And then we see this TV right here, and it shows a really cool cutscene that is super awesome, and I recommend everybody see because it's such a cool cutscene. But we're going to skip it. So starting the cutscene, but not finishing it, lets us hit the trigger for it. However, we don't want to watch it. It's very, very slow. It's a very cool cutscene, but it's very slow. It also is kind of what enables the boss's AI. So we're just going to fly to the boss arena, and Salvador is just going to be vibing. I don't know why this works. There's no other boss in the game that's like this, but because of the way that we enter and the thing that we did over there, Salvador is just going to be floating the entire time. He is not going to try and fight back for a single moment. But we do have to clear out the ads. These guys will actually fight back. I don't know why their AI works and Salvador's doesn't, but basically we can literally just shoot him while he is up there. We're going to be getting all of these guys first. It's just a little bit easier to clear them out. But as you can see, he just doesn't even care. It's great. Now that we got all of the ads killed, we can just basically headshot him, throw things at him, and kind of just bully this poor man. Since, again, his AI just is broken. Normally he's down here, he's shielding up, he's throwing all these objects at you. This is a really intense, difficult fight, and we just beat him. Do want to mention that is the only boss that we actually break like that. The rest of them are pretty much just done as intended, and the goal is to do them as well as you possibly can. But now that we have defeated him, we have gained another ability. We got Levitate from a TV. I'm sure there is a correlation there. I can't think of one, but because we touched the TV and we kind of absorbed it, we can now fly. This is amazing for out of bounds. I mean, I want to say that they kind of unintentionally just gave us like the perfect tools for out of bounds navigation in this game. So the route that we have been doing has been pretty much following any percent very similar, because other than Golden Copy and then other than Tomasi, both of those take about 30 seconds each. We've been basically doing 80%. Now that we have defeated Salvador, and we are going to be doing a quick little mission to finish and find our brother, we can basically do the rest of the bosses, or at least a good chunk of them, and get them out of the way. But this is like the level that we go to where it really starts to, the bosses start to pile on and the changes start to become a little bit more apparent. So we're going to do another shieldy. That's going to take us into the end here. It skips having to wait for a door to open. And we're going to find our brother's containment cell. However, he's not there. He went over to Emily where she is, and he is currently in a cell in that spot. So we didn't even need to do any of this to get him, but, you know, oh well, Jesse saved the day by accident again. Now that we have done that, we're going to start doing some side quests. So the first thing we need to do is we need to relieve Philip of his duties. This is a reference to SCP-173, and it is a object where if somebody is not actively looking at it, it will shift. It'll do something. And that something isn't very good. So what the FBC does is they will assign somebody to constantly watch it and rotate shifts. Well, Frederick Layson, the person we just talked to right there, isn't very good at his job and kind of forgot that there was somebody in there. So Philip has been staring at that fridge for the past 2 days. He needs a break. So Jesse is going to give him one. You know, Philip is a hard-working employee at the Federal Bureau of Control. Don't worry about what's going on in there. He's actually just going to go grab some coffee. I promise he's okay. Don't worry. He was having a PBJ sandwich that he kind of just spilled all over the floor. He's fine. Nothing bad happened to Philip.
It hurts me.
But this is going to introduce us to our next boss. I'm going to grab this right here. So this is called the Former.
Sounds like the but I can't understand it.
There's some lore stuff going on here as to why this giant evil monster thing is hanging out in a fridge. But yeah, this boss fight is a little difficult and can be kind of scary if you aren't careful. But we're trying to get a good cycle with him. We're doing a lot of damage. It's a little bit hard to hit his like critical hit point basically. Gotta watch out for those. Oh, gotta be a little careful. This is where it becomes very important to properly manage your everything, your service weapon damage, to manage your energy, because that's the only way they can skip these. Oh, okay, that's fine. That's fine. That was a very weird glitch. I'm not sure what happened, but we defeated the boss. I'm actually very confused as to why I got launched and skyrocketed up into the air. I think I accidentally mantled onto his arm and that got flung up as I was killing him. I have no idea, but we have defeated him. The fridge has been fixed, and we're gonna go back to Langston. I'm sure Philip is around here somewhere. I'm sure he's okay. Don't worry about it.
Can we say that's never happened before?
We can say the line.
Bingo!
So now that we've talked to Langston, he goes, great, you found the one object that escaped. Now here's 3 more. There's a part 1 and a part 2 to this quest. Part 2 has a boss into it, so because of that, we need to do part 1 first and finish that up, and then we can get to the boss in part 2. We're also going to be building Pierce right here. As you can see, this is the weapon that I was trying to get very, very hard earlier. We're also going to get some more energy. We're going to be heading over to logistics first. Oh, that was a weird double input. But now that we have defeated the Former 1, we are given the goal to find a bunch of escaped objects. These aren't as dangerous, they're more just weird, which is a signature theme for this game. The first one is in the same area that Salvador was, so we're going to be going to go collect that with basically the same shieldy that we did earlier. So in the meantime, while we're going to grab this object, now would be a great time for a donation.
So we don't have any yet, but I did want to go over the incentives real quick. The Deltarune Banana Bid War is currently with Get the Banana in the lead. Super Metroid Randomizer, Save or Kill the Animals, Save the Animals is in the lead. And for the Tunic Fox color, the pink and or trans color is currently in the lead. And I might be a little biased, but I definitely am happy with that.
Awesome. So this is a traffic light. You guys have ever played red light, green light? This is basically what's going on, only if you get caught, it will teleport you. I'm gonna let this cycle go through. So the gimmick of it is you're supposed to not be moving when it turns red. We're gonna try and skip a cycle, which we did. Nice. We'll grab it right here, cleanse it from the hiss, and that is one of the objects down. We're gonna kind of just do these as we get near to them. But now that we have done that, we are gonna be heading over to our next boss and our next side quest. This one was extremely painful for the longest time, and it's still a very difficult boss fight with a very difficult skip. However, it's a little bit easier now, thanks to our good old friend Shieldy. It's amazing how often I will say that, like, oh yeah, this used to be extremely hard, and then Shieldy came in and saved everything. So this is Horowitz. He is an injured soldier that sends us to go find a medic named Wells. And Wells needs to be escorted back to him. You know, it's everybody's favorite part of every single video game, the escort mission. Normally he wants us to go tug on that motel cord, do a really long puzzle to get to him. However, we're gonna try and not do that. If I can actually clip out of bounds here. There we go. We're not gonna do that puzzle. It's super long, it's very annoying, it involves clocks. And I just don't really want to do it. So we're going to basically just fly out of bounds and drop into the very end of the puzzle, basically skipping it entirely. So now that we have done that, we have a little combat session, and we're going to meet Wells. Wells needs to be escorted back to Horowitz. And it's not really that easy, because it's not that he's, you know, bad escort mission or anything like that, but normally you're expected to do a lot of fights and there's a lot of combat, and overall it can be very, very annoying. So we're going to be trying to skip as much of it as we can, and it's kind of a weird way that we do it. So first things first, we're going to grab that control point right there. We're going to talk to Wells here. That is going to start the actual quest. Normally we're not able to like teleport away. If we do, then it resets him. However, when you talk to him for the very first time, it doesn't reset him. He'll continue moving on towards the door while we're doing this. So because of that, we can actually just enable Shieldy right here. And that's going to let us fly out of bounds. And we want to be out of bounds for this section. So we still need to escort him, and we need to make sure we don't soft lock. So we have to hit a couple of triggers along the way. Things like waiting for him to open this door right here near us, make sure he goes through, and just a bunch of other stuff. Normally we did this entire section out of bounds, however we found a way to go inbounds that makes it significantly easier. This used to be one of the hardest skips in the entire game. Now it's a little bit more forgiving if you make a mistake. But first things first, we're going to head over here. We need to hit a trigger that is down below us, and we don't really have an easy way of doing that, so we'll be very careful. Hit that trigger, come over here, and that puts us inbounds. Thank goodness, because if you don't do that properly, you die, and you have to go all the way back. So thankfully that didn't happen, and while we're doing this, we can come over here, and we're clearing another one of Langston's runaways. That leaves us only, I think, 2 more. Yep, 2 more, and we skip a bunch of fights as well. So now that we're inbounds, we have Wells with us. Don't worry about all those clocks. I'm sure there's an explanation that this game has that we'll run into later on. Oh, these guys don't have any spawns. I might have missed a trigger here. We're going to continue on as normal, but this might be an issue. Yeah. Very weird. We're going to continue on and see what happens. This game likes to do random stuff that I haven't seen before, and I kind of just want to see what happens, but we shouldn't be losing too much time here. Gonna also open up these mod boxes while we're waiting for him, because he can be kind of slow sometimes. You know, he likes to take his time. I also want to mention that he has clearance level 9. The most that we ever get as the director. Yeah, he's not gonna open this door, is he?
Let's go.
Let's see. Yeah, looks like he's broken, so that sometimes happens with this mission, but don't worry. The good thing about this game is if you run into an issue like this, you can just quit to the menu and it'll fix everything. So we're going to try this again. We're going to start that. I'm going to have to do a alternate way of getting out of bounds because basically since we have already did it once before, he's now going to be stuck following us. and we can't actually leave the area now without losing him from following us. So this is how we used to do the skip normally. We would grab this explosive device and hope that we don't accidentally explode ourselves. So while we're catching back up, now would be a good time for donations.
Not seeing any new donations yet, but y'all, like, I know we just reached the goal not too long ago, but we could still keep going. We've still got a lot of time of this marathon to go, so definitely get your donations in. We definitely got to support the Midwest Axis Coalition.
Okay, that was a little bit more comfortable, so I think we should be okay now.
An altered item up there.
Yep, that's the thing that we needed to hit. Good to know. So we should be actually running into enemies in this area, and Wells is following us, and everything is good, hopefully. No, these guys still haven't spawned. I'm not too sure why these guys are not wanting to come through. So hopefully we can go through. If not, I might just have to abandon this quest, because I haven't seen this and maybe try it again later. But I am very confused right now. Let's see if he comes to the door and sees if he unlocks it. If he does, great. If not, that might be an issue. Come on, Wells, you know you want to. Buddy? Pal? Alright. He's not functioning properly, so we're just going to move on from this boss right now. I'm not too sure what's going on. We'll try it again later, but I don't want to lose too much time in doing so. So because of that, we're just going to skip this for now, and we're going to head over to the Anchor boss fight. The Anchor boss fight is actually pretty cool. We're going to do another shieldy in order to get there. I'm pretty sure it should spawn okay. But, you know, it lets us say the funny line. That has never happened before.
The best line.
Yep. So I'm going to open my menu right here. This will allow me to kind of see where I am in the pitch black in some of these harder areas. Because you can actually move while you have your menu open, which makes some of these out of bounds navigations very, very useful. So this fight should spawn in okay. If not, I will find another thing later on. Okay, the fight is not gonna spawn in okay, so we're gonna come back here later on and figure out what's going on. But of course, you know, it's marathon luck. Let's try doing this. We're just gonna do this actually intentionally. It's gonna be a little bit slower, but you guys get to see more combat, and I'm sure nobody's gonna ever complain about that.
What's with the clocks?
So we're gonna come over here. Normally we would just skip this entirely, but again, the game is being weird, and you know, that's pretty on par for the game and the theme of it. So I'm just going to assume that it was something that they kind of just did on purpose.
That's O'Neill.
There we go. That's the trigger that I think I should have hit earlier. But we're just gonna do this fight really quick. Let me get him, let me get him. Here. As you can see, combat is super, super important in this game. Even though the skips are very, you know, useful in order to actually skip things, it's very important that you actually get good at the combat. And, you know, you're cautious of the surroundings, and you make sure you know, are just doing a good job and paying attention to what's around you. A lot of these enemies also have some very weird properties regarding them. Like, for example, those flyers, it's kind of weird how they actually hit you and how they dodge you. And along with that, the launch ability does have a couple of weird quirks to it. There we go. Now you guys are here. So I'm not too sure why they weren't spawning earlier, but, you know, it happens. Okay, got two more guys right here. And now that we have killed all those guys, we have definitely hit all of the triggers because we did that inbounds. Wells, you are going to come down here and you are going to open this door. Or not. Did I really just jinx myself right there? I am not sure. You know, oh, there we go. Hey, awesome. Okay. Just gave me a little bit of a heart attack right there for absolutely no reason. As you can see, me and Wells, we don't get along very well. But if that skip worked as intended, that skip would have been called Wells Fargo, which is the best skip name in the entire game. And I'm pretty upset that it didn't work, but you know, it happens.
Let's go.
So now that he is here, we're going to take him back to Horowitz. Unfortunately, Horowitz he's not feeling too great.
Shit.
So it turns out he has been taken over by the hiss, like when we were gone. So because of that, we had to fight him. This is where Pierce comes in, the new weapon that we have, very well. Because if you get a good headshot on him, and it's kind of hard to do because of where it is, you do a lot of damage just like that. Awesome. All right, that was an amazing fight against Horowitz, so that kind of just made up for all of that. But there we go. We have defeated Horowitz, and now the anchor should have spawned properly. So this next boss fight is probably my least favorite casually, because casually this is where I quit the game on my first playthrough and didn't touch it for probably like 6 months. So yeah, I didn't like this boss casually, but thankfully the speed run makes it very consistent. So we're gonna do the same shieldy that I did earlier. Gonna head over here. Gonna gain some height. Oh, that works. Normally I don't actually end up in that room there. Cool. And there we go. Now it's spawned in. So this is another example of why we want Pierce for these boss fights, is we can actually skip a cycle. So normally we're supposed to go through all these 4 platforms and hit it when it is vulnerable and when it's attacking us. And normally we go through all of these and it gets left with like 2 HP. And because we have Pierce though, we can hit it right there, and that is the 2 HP that we needed. So that skips an entire cycle against him, which is very, very useful. Wait for him to open his mouth, and we're gonna throw that. This is the thing that's been producing all of these clocks. I don't know what an anchor has to do with clocks. I'm sure there is, again, you know, a very rational, logical reason in this game that isn't weird at all, but I don't know it. Right, gonna come over here. One more throw. And that is another boss down. Before we actually leave though, we do have to cleanse the object of the hiss. The reason that we do this is because it will give us a couple of points to level up with, and also the category used to be, I think it was called all altered items before it became all bosses. It was about cleansing all of the altered items in the games, so it's kind of just a legacy thing that carried over from that.
I just want to say that this is my first time seeing this game, and I am so invested. And you're doing a wonderful job, all things considered, even though Wells is not working very wells for you.
Oh, that's perfect. It's all good. Oh, we got this thing again. All right, I'm not gonna do that again. Again, game is being weird. See, the game is kind of sentient. It's almost like it's an object of power on its own, where it likes to do very weird stuff when I'm running it at a marathon that just isn't common. So I'm sure, you know, basically the game designers were like, all right, we know somebody is going to be speedrunning this one day. We know it's going to be at an event. We need to make sure that it is sentient enough to know how to troll a player while they're doing their runs. You know, normal stuff. But we're going to get over into here. This is our next object that we're going to be cleansing. Hopefully they don't kill me. Should be okay. Just need for that to go through. Awesome. Now that we have done that, we can finally leave the containment sector and head back into the executive sector. This is where we met Emily originally. This is where we were without her powers. And this is going to be kind of an example of the game design that this game has, where we're going to be heading over to Dead Letters. And now that we have our levitate ability, we can access this area a lot more. So basically, now that we can actually access this area properly now, we're going to be heading up here, and now we're going to be finding one of Langston's runaways. These are basically paranormal letters, and that's going to get us up here. And now that we have our levitate, we can actually access this area. Normally, you wouldn't be able to do so if you didn't have it. So now we can actually complete this quest, and it's kind of an example of how the game works. You're expected to explore. There's a lot more lore and all that stuff. It's very, very cool. It's a really awesome game. I'm gonna grab this one. The game kind of wants you to follow a pattern and almost guess. However, it's in the same place every single time. So because of that, it's very easy to remember where it's going to land and just kind of be waiting for it rather than trying to follow it around and catch it. So now we're heading back. We're going to meet our brother finally, you know, Jesse's main motivation. Normally the game wants you to talk to Emily and then you go to talk to Dylan. However, we have a skip right here. This one is called Face of the Emily skip because we skip actually talking to Emily. So we won't be seeing her until later on, but we can actually just go through the floor right there and talk to her brother immediately, which is really nice. So this is Dylan. As you can see, he's a little spooky right now, but we'll fix that. We'll fix that. So basically, he's been taken over by the Hiss, and he wants us to go to another part of the FBC and discover the truth about it. If you have experience with basically with like SCP lore, in the SCP universe, the SCP group are kind of evil. They're very much like out containing objects no matter what, so they kind of do very sketchy things. The FBC isn't as evil, but that doesn't mean that they're great. So this is kind of Jesse's brother going, hey, you know, you've been seeing the good side. Here's the bad side. But first, we have to go run into a familiar face. So if you remember, this is one of the earlier bosses that we fought. We are going to be fighting him once more in a different arena, and that is Former 2. Now, he was in a fridge last time, so let's see where he's hanging out right now. Looks like he is in a plastic pink flamingo.
That's got to be an altered item.
Again, I'm sure there is a very rational, logical reason for why an evil worm god is hanging out in a pink flamingo. I can't think of it, but that doesn't mean that there's not a reason. Yeah, we're gonna be doing this fight really quickly. This one's a little bit harder. You have a smaller arena, and when you're attacked, it will basically break off the floor. So you have to be very careful, because otherwise you might fall through by accident, which is not fun. We also want to keep him on this side of the arena. There's like another section that he can go over to that we don't want him to go over to. So we want to do some camera miffs to make sure that he stays over here with us. Oh. And he is done. Thankfully, once you kill him immediately, you can just quit out and then come back in and you have defeated him. And as you can see, Jesse is not a fan of flamingos. But now that we have done all of those bosses, all of that side content, all of that, we are actually going to continue on with the main story once more. So we're going to do another shieldy, because of course we are. And we are going to be heading back out of bounds. Be doing some gliding over this way. Gonna come over here. This one is very scary. We have to hit a trigger down here. There we go. gonna do some more out of bounds navigation. This is the extreme example as to like doing out of bounds with levitation. We've been seeing it a little bit without it, and it definitely looks very different. But as you can see, when we are levitating, it actually doesn't use our energy bar, which is really nice, and it lets it refill. So this lets us just gain an insane amount of distance that we wouldn't be able to reach normally, which enables a lot of these skips. Over here, this should be the last part out of bounds. When we land right here, that should hit all of the proper triggers, and then we're gonna fly into here, and we should see that door turn red. Okay. It's always just long enough to where it doesn't turn red that it scares me every time, and every time it always turns red. So this is like one of our first like end game fights. Oh, there we go. Where's this flying enemy? This is like one of her first end game fights. As you can see, these enemies are level 4. Normally they've been like level 2 or 3. So this is where they start to like get boosted up in power and are a little bit more dangerous and a little bit harder to fight. But thankfully, you know, Jessie is still pretty powerful, even though we are technically under-leveled by the game standards. But right now we're on a timer. We're waiting for the last enemy to spawn, so we want to kill those guys quickly, because then we can just grab an object, wait by the door, and there we go. That was almost a perfect fight, so I'm really happy with how that went. We're gonna wait for that. What we're gonna do here also is we're gonna equip that. That is a energy boost, and then we're gonna come over here and get energy recovery speed as well. Normally in the run, mods aren't as important in any percent because you don't really do a lot of super intense combat. However, it's much more important in this category. You have a lot more fights that you're doing, and they're a lot more difficult. So because of that, you have to be a little bit careful. But now we're going to head over to the research sector. And of course, we're going to be fighting another boss. This is one of my favorite casually. It has a lot of lore implications, and it's just overall a very fun fight. But we actually want to use grip for this one because we have a very fast moving enemy. So because of that, we want our headshot boost mod onto our grip, which will basically boost up the damage by a lot. If you're paying attention during the Horowitz fight with Pierce, a headshot basically did almost half of his health. So it's a very useful mod that we get earlier. Gonna do another shieldy. Again, as you can see, we have a lot of room for error in comparison to earlier with our levitate ability. We're gonna come over here. You see that little blue fog? We're gonna be basically trying to land on it. We're gonna come over here. As you can see, we're gonna hit that trigger, which is gonna spawn this text, and we need to hit one more, which we can hit by landing on this camera. And now we're gonna head over into this blue room. As you can see, this is basically the same room that we were just in. And that is because this is the mirror altered item. So we hit a trigger right there, and as you can see, Jessie is talking in mirrored speech. Everything else is mirrored. We can see on the wall right there, it's the Federal Bureau of Control. And of course, we have a mirrored version of Jessie. So I'm sure you can guess what this boss fight is going to be. We're going to head over here. Got to see some more spooky stuff. As you can see, by the way, this character has the best costume for Jessie, which you do get to unlock for yourself later on. Basically, it turns you into a Jedi, which who doesn't like being turned into a Jedi? So here is the boss fight. We are now going up against Esedge. This boss fight can actually be very dangerous and very scary. It's pretty much like the closest we have to, you know, PvP. And boy, do they not make this fight easy. Esedge likes to take your objects from your hand, and you'll like try to throw something, and it just won't work. She also has your powers as well, and she even has weapons that we don't have access to that are also very dangerous. Oh, okay. That was a little scary, but we're okay. So as you can see, she just grabbed that object from my hand and basically made it completely useless, which is very nice. And by very nice, I mean very frustrating.
That better be all of
But there we go. Awesome. Sorry, I got a little quiet there. That fight can be very dangerous. She is like one of the few bosses that is very easy to die to, because if you aren't careful, she can just like shoot a grenade launcher shot at you and like throw something at you at almost the same time, and that will basically kill you. So always a little bit nervous with that fight, but thankfully we got through it no problem. We're gonna cleanse the mirror right here, and we should be getting the points now. Awesome. So now that we have done that, we can continue on with the main story. This is Finished Tango. So now that we have gone to that garbage dump where we did that fight, we have learned that the object that destroyed our hometown is actually here. And because it is here, we need to take care of it because, you know, it's causing some problems. So normally the game wants you to go through the ashtray maze to access the dimensional research area, and when you go to the ashtray maze, it won't let you through. It'll infinitely loop in on itself. So we find out that we need to fix it because it's broken. And the only person who can help us is Ati, who is the janitor. Unfortunately, he is on vacation, which, you know, I respect. Even though there is a disaster going on, you know, he deserves his vacation. And for a Finnish, holidays are holy. So because of that, the game wants you to like go through all of this stuff to try and find him, and eventually he gives you a Walkman. We're gonna skip almost all of that entirely. And I will say, if you're familiar with this game casually and you're really excited to see how speedrunners handled the ashtray maze, because it's such a cool sequence in the game, I am so sorry we are completely skipping it. But don't worry, it's kind of a cool way that we do it, and we have other ways, other cool stuff that we can see as well. If you are interested in a glitchless version of this run, there isn't a glitchless category. However, inbounds is essentially glitchless. That is where you are not allowed to go out of bounds. So because of that, there is a lot more combat, and you also get to see the ashtray maze, which really is the main reason for inbounds, let's face it. So again, normally the game wants you to go all the way around the entirety of the maintenance sector trying to find him, as he leads you on kind of a wild goose chase. However, he's basically just going to lead us here. So basically, we're just going to go to the end. I'm going to hit this button, so 205, or 206, 306, 336. So I was saying those numbers. Basically, I have a timer on screen. When I hit that button, I have to wait for a trigger to spawn. It takes 90 seconds for that trigger to spawn, and then we can actually hit it. Because normally you're supposed to do a huge combat section over there, fight a bunch of enemies while you're waiting for this elevator to, or not elevator, this like lift to carry you back over. However, that's really slow, and the game doesn't really restrict you from just dashing all the way to the end. However, we can't continue on until we hit a certain trigger. We can't hit that trigger until 90 seconds after we hit that button, because it'll spawn right there in the void. So I was just making sure that I had the right time for it. And in the meantime, this is kind of a good area to mess around, take a little bit of a break, drink some water, stay hydrated, chat. And if we have donations or any plugs that we want to do, now would be the time to do so.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We actually got quite a few donations in. We got a donation of $119.19 from Ian Keith, saying, I appear to have missed the let's hit the goal part of this marathon, so instead, here's a nice donation to push us onwards and upwards. The donation earlier was 5169.69.
Nice.
Here's to everyone, right? Here's to everyone staying awesome. Good luck to the runners and enjoy the chaos of the last bid wars. Thank you so much. We do have 3 more. Lorigami with $40, no comment, but thank you so much. B's the one with $50, no comment, but thank you so much. And TK Wolf with $100, saying much love to staff and runners for putting on a great show and helping a very important cause. Keep up the great work. Thank you guys so much. Currently in the lead, we have Gray Ace for the Tunic Fox color. Save the Animals in the lead by a long shot with $175. And Get the Banana for Deltarune Banana Bid War.
Awesome. Yeah, just want to give a shout out to Tech. They have been doing an amazing job this entire event, and you guys have no idea how much work is going on in the background that they're doing. So this is where I would have the audience give them a round of applause, but obviously there isn't one, so I'll just do it myself.
I'll join in.
Yeah. They definitely made this event absolutely awesome. So now that we have got our Walkman, now we can continue on with the game. But first, we're going to be fighting the last 2 bosses. So if you've been keeping track, we have fought 8 out of the 10 bosses, and we have 2 more. We're going to fight these 2 bosses really quick, and then we're going to continue on with the end of the game. But these are probably 2 of the hardest bosses, with some of the hardest skips. So have to be a little bit careful here. So in the game, as you've been going through, there has been a noticeable amount of molds that has been growing in specific parts of the levels, which have been hurting us if we get near it. So this is where we kind of investigate that. We find that there has been a growth inside of the FBC, and it's kind of nasty, but normally the game wants us to go find a bunch of samples for her, that character right over there, Underhill, to create basically a immunity for the molds. However, we're not going to do that. Instead, we're just going to kind of skip it entirely. Have to be careful here. If I die, then it can be very bad. And oh no! No, I'm just kidding. We're okay. That was an intentional death. The death trigger for there is the same trigger that we need to actually continue on with the objective. So we're just going to run into that, die, and then respawn immediately. And now we can actually just go fly to the end of the boss. But first, we gotta do a little skip here. So this is different. This is a CP slam. We are going to do a bunch of inputs here. It's kind of hard to explain while talking. But I'm trying to overlap this menu as I am teleporting away like that. Or as I'm doing a slam like that. So it's a lot of inputs like all together. Oh, this should work. It did. Awesome. So as you saw right there, I was basically interacting with the control point while I was opening up the menu afterwards, and I was levitating by doing a double jump, which puts me into the levitation. It's a lot of inputs that you have to do in a very short amount of time. It kind of functions the same way as Shieldy does, but the thing is with CP slams is you don't really have a way of... Oh, I actually have to fix this. Nope, that's right. So this is Mold 1. This is actually one of the hardest bosses in the game. Especially if we get some weird throws like this. A thing about launch is it doesn't like to function sometimes, and Jesse will like attempt to grab a object that is kind of out of bounds like that, which isn't great for us, but we should be almost done with this fight. And we are done. Nice. So that was Mold 1. Now we're going to be heading over to Tomasi 2. This is one of the hardest bosses in the entire game. It is designed to be an endgame boss. Basically, we fought Tomasi at the very start of the game, and it's kind of supposed to be like, hey, you know, here, you're going to fight him again and take him down this time, and you have all these cool powers, but he's also evolved too. This fight is horrible. It's very difficult. The arena is very awkward to fight in. And overall, it's just not a good time. I mentioned earlier that there were some enemies where they will turn invisible and get near you, scream in your ear, and drop you down to 1 HP. We saw one of these earlier, but we fought it really fast, and we basically cheesed it with a couple of really good launches. We can't do that here. So if I don't kill this boss fast enough, these enemies will just pop out of nowhere and do, like, almost all of my health, which is very, very scary. So when I start this boss fight, I'm going to be a little bit quiet and I'm going to be a little bit focused. I'm going to be trying to use Pierce as much as possible, and I'm going to want to save my launches because I can interrupt his attack if I throw something at him. Even if he dodges it, I can still interrupt the attack, which is the important part. So if you have any pray for RNG emotes, now is the time to use them. Gonna do another shieldy over here. This is gonna take us over towards the arena. And make sure I'm in a good spot for it. We don't want to fall too quickly, but we don't want to fall too slowly. There we go. That's gonna hit it. All right. Big vault up to here. That's gonna be Tomasi right there. We're gonna throw something at him in order to break his shield, and I'm gonna be trying to getting headshots on him, which will do a bunch of damage. Grabbing objects can be a little bit awkward in this arena. They like to get stuck in the wall, which is why I like to favor my Pierce shots. Also, he likes to throw objects at us. That crap. Okay. Oh, that's not great. We can save this. Want to get back up here. Throw at him. Again, just trying to do as much damage as I can. All right, cool. Whew, that fight is super scary. So I'm glad it didn't go terrible. But there we go. That was the last boss defeated. Glad that we did that in one shot, because again, that can be kind of horrifying. Now that we have defeated all the bosses, we can continue on to the end of the game finally. So all 10 bosses have been defeated. The last thing to do is to defeat the hiss that is coming in, and basically we need to do that in a couple of ways. I want to mention that Jessie has been having a voice inside her head for the past 17 years that has been kind of a friendly guide, so to speak. So it's one of the reasons why she is immune to the hiss and she's not getting taken over like everybody else, is this voice called Polaris who is in her head. So right now we're going to be doing a skip right over here. This is called no smoking because it skips the ashtray maze. And we're basically going to be flying in a very specific way, completely blind with only our map to guide us. Need to snake down into here. Okay. I'm not sure how high or how low we are. It's kind of hard to tell. I think we've gained height. Yeah, look how high we are. Okay. Oh, okay. We're good. So we're going to fall all the way down here. And we have skipped the entirety of the ashtray maze. But that voice that I mentioned, their name is Polaris, and we're actually going to be meeting them right here. It turns out Polaris is the reason that everybody isn't turning into hiss monsters, so she is very important. And kind of a, I wish we got more Polaris, but don't worry. We're going to be trying to save her. So right now she's getting attacked by the hiss, and we are supposed to activate 6 siphons to save her. There's 3 siphons on the ground and then 3 more that you have to like slowly climb up towards. It is one of the hardest areas in the game, and it used to be the biggest RNG section. However, thanks to Shieldy, I find myself saying that a lot. We basically can skip it. So we're gonna head all the way over here. Normally we're supposed to do a bunch of stuff, and then we have to do like 3 siphons in there, and we're getting attacked by enemies. And while we're cleansing the siphons, if we get hit by an enemy, it stops it. It doesn't let us do it until we like re-get on it, and it kills our progress. It's very bad when you're trying to do that and you're getting attacked by 50 different enemies that are all really high level. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna hit these soft lock triggers out of order. So as you can see, I opened up those things through the wall. That's supposed to trigger a cutscene. However, we haven't hit the right triggers. So because of that, it doesn't really know where to put us. So we go back in bounds, we come over to here, and we hit the trigger, and I pull my hand and mouse off the keyboard. Or my hand off the keyboard and mouse. We need to watch this cutscene play. If you skip it, you you don't hit the trigger. So we let this cutscene play. It's going to stop on its own automatically and skip. That means that we hit the trigger. And now we have skipped the first 3 siphons. And we have also made the 4th siphon consistent. The 4th siphon was very inconsistent because you get attacked by multiple enemies, including an enemy that shoots a rocket launcher through a wall to hit us and stop us. And because of that, it can basically kill your run. However, with shielding, we have a manip for the enemies to where actually half of them do not spawn in. And because they don't spawn in, they don't interrupt us, they don't aggro to us, and we can do this safely. It is one of my favorite tricks in the entire game, and it's called Never Fighty Satellitey. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over here to this huge dome, shieldy on over, get back inbounds, and as you can see, that is the 4th siphon. Technically the first for us because we skipped the first 3, but it's supposed to be the 4th in game. We drop down in a specific spot. It only spawns 2 enemies here. However, these enemies are not going to worry about us. They're just going to let us do our own thing. And that is the siphon cleansed. That used to be the scariest part of my runs right there, and now it is 100% free every single time. You love to see it. But we're going to continue on this way. As you can see, we have a couple more enemies, but in comparison to like the 4th siphon and the first ones that we skipped earlier, these ones are much more forgiving and they're much easier to do so. So of course, because I said that, I might jinx myself here, but hopefully we don't get shot. All right, we didn't get shot. That is good to know. And hop onto here, and we're gonna head over to the last one. This is usually the easiest, but of course it's a marathon. We already had some stuff, so I'm just really hoping that nothing bad happens and we don't get hit by any stray shots. Come on, almost done, and we are good. Awesome. That area can be really terrifying when you're on PB pace because a random bullet can just come over and hit you, and that is your run. But we have finally reached Polaris, and Polaris is dead. So turns out we weren't actually helping save her, and she dies, and the game does a fake out ending. Don't worry, Tag, I promise the run's not over yet. You didn't miss the cue. Keep the timer going. We're still going. This game has a fake out ending. For the longest time, it used to be a big tradition where we would pretend like the run was over here and be like, oh, you know, this is, you know, yeah, that was a good run, you know, we came in under S. Oh, what's all this weird text? But we've done so many runs that we don't do it as much. So we get a little cutscene right here. Again, this is a nice little break point when you're doing runs because you just get through that super intense area, and here we have a couple of minutes to relax and catch herself up. So story-wise though, Jessie is currently being invaded by the Hiss. The magical barrier that protected her from turning into a Hiss monster is now gone. So now this little section after this is going to be us basically fighting to push it out. And if you didn't know, the Hiss actually shows you your worst nightmare, and Jessie's worst nightmare is working a 9-to-5 office job. Truly horrendous. So while we're cleaning up these coffee cups left behind by just, you know, jerk office workers, now would be a good time for any donations or plugs that the host would like to do.
We don't have any current donations right now, but I just wanted to say that watching you play this has been such a treat, and I definitely want to like go ahead and see a casual playthrough because the story's so intriguing, and you're doing a fantastic job in blowing me away. So thank you so much for like just having being here. Words are hard. Thank you for being here and making this run happen. This is awesome.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad, you know, I feel very thankful that I was able to showcase this run. This is like one of my favorite speedruns of all time. Normally I focus on the any percent category. However, all bosses is definitely another really awesome category, and the community for Control is really great. Lots of people will basically help you out, and you know, even people who haven't ran the game in a long time also like are still active and still willing to help out. So it's a really cool community. If you're interested in running the game, there are some easier categories, or if you don't like glitches, there are categories that are glitchless. But there's also a lot of really good guides on how to learn like this category if you wanted to. And along with that, I'm willing to sit in a Discord call and help people out with everything needed. So if you're interested in running this game, we have the Discord linked on our speedrun.com page, where you can see the leaderboard. That's where we have the forums, all that jazz. So if you're interested in running this game, I would definitely look into it. It's one of the most well-balanced speedruns I've ever seen. But we're going to be continuing through this nightmare sequence. As you can see, that's Ati over there. We don't see him that much in the speedrun. He's, I promise, a very important character. We're also going to do a fake noom here. We did it earlier. Basically, a fake noom is like a regular noom. So earlier we warped by mantling out of bounds, and it puts us to the 000 cell, or coordinates of the cell. Here, what happens is we mantle into a cutscene. The cutscene tries to place us in one spot, the mantle tries to place us in another, and we kind of end up in the middle of that. So it doesn't save actually any time at all, but we call it a fake noom. It's a little fun thing that you can do. But here we go. We are learning how to push the hiss out. And it turns out that even though Polaris died, the piece of her that was still inside our head is like living on. And it's kind of like a copy. So because of that, and because Jessie is just an overall female badass, she's basically going to say, all right, screw the hiss. I'm getting out of my own head.
Dead, I can't.
So because of that, we're able to escape the hiss, and now we are going to finally do the final confrontation. And also save our brother, because our brother has been infected by the hiss as well. Normally, this is like the scene where you fight against level 30 enemies. In the game, we were fighting like level 6 enemies, so it's kind of a jump, but it's also where we get a bunch of power from the board, and it's kind of just like more of a, like, hey, you're a badass now part, rather than like an actual difficult end game. However, we can kind of just skip all the final fights. It's actually kind of a cool way that we do it, but we're gonna come over here. This is a slide projector. It's causing all of this madness. Again, why is a slide projector opening portals and dimensions to other realities where things can take over our minds? I don't know. Again, this game is absolutely insane. But we're gonna come over here, gonna wait for my energy to recover. And normally, you're supposed to like fight these guys. It brings up a bunch of platforms. You fight those guys, it brings up more platforms. However, we can just skip all of that entirely. So I'm looking at a very specific spot. I'm using my energy in a very specific way. And here, after we expend the rest of our energy right here, we should be seeing that pop up. We need to be careful. We don't want to get caught in here in an awkward position. So we're going to do some mashing, and we're going to do one more float. So normally we have to get over here. Normally this is blocked off. However, there are a couple of tiny holes in the geometry that we're going to be taking advantage of. Right about here. And as you can see, we go right through the wall. And time is going to be coming up here in a second when we go talk to Dylan right there. Go over here, do another slam. And time. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you Fastest First for having me. It's always an honor to do a run at great marathons like this. Shout out to the host I have right here, Cast. They did a great job. And yeah, I'm just, again, if you are interested in this game, you can check us out. We have a Discord, speedrun.com/control. It's a very, very cool game. And yeah, if you want to find more of me, I do a lot of third-person shooter speedruns, including Control here. I also do Mass Effect 2, which is another cool speedrun. You can find me at twitch.tv/DemonicRobots. But yeah, thank you guys for having me on. I hope the rest of the marathon goes well. I wish good luck to the rest of the runners, and I hope everybody in chat has a great day.